Today we're talking about leadership and manipulation, and we're going to dive into why leaders manipulate, why they feel they need to manipulate in order to control or get things done, why they may feel it's necessary, even when it's justified, why it is not ideal for a leader to be manipulating, and what you can do about it. If this is the first time we're meeting, I'm Stephana Johnson, author of Lead Stronger Longer and host of the podcast Lead Stronger Longer. Now, ideally, you are leading yourself first. That is definitely the purpose of this podcast, is to inspire you to lead yourself first. Because if you are, then you will not need to be manipulating others. And when you do feel the need to manipulate others, and you call that leadership or parenting or whatever it is that you're doing, you'll come to the point where you know that those results that you're getting by manipulating and getting your team or your sons and daughters to do your bidding is not actually healthy, is not the outcome that you want when you look at the bigger picture. Maybe in that moment, you've coerced them, you've gotten them to do something that you think or you thought what you wanted them to do, and they did it. Yay for you, you got them to do it. And now you have created essentially someone who there's going to be at some point some kind of resentment, and they have disconnected from their own ability, which is so crucial for someone who is going to be on your team, their own ability to lead themselves, which is ultimately what we want. What a good leader, what a powerhouse leader is so good at doing is being in alignment with themselves first. That means that their thoughts and that what they care about, what their passion is, what their values are, and what their actions are, that is internally at home in their relationships with themselves, how they're eating, how they're taking care of their own vessel, is all in harmony. And so when they are showing up to their organization, to the business that they're creating, to the movement that they are putting forth in this world, they are in alignment and in harmony, and the manipulation piece disappears. Manipulation by leaders comes about when that is missing. When you as a leader are disconnected from your true powerhouse, from your true ability to inspire, to what I believe is true leadership, which is to inspire, not manipulate, not control. And it's an interesting piece because it's taken me a long time to learn this. I've been part of massive control mechanisms, organizations where it was all about control, but we justified it. We were doing a great thing. We were making a global impact. This was important. And if people didn't follow orders, people didn't, right? This is a very linear, left brain, ineffective, disharmonious way of thinking. And it is not one that is supportive to a world where there is truly peace, harmony, and trust and evolution, true expansion of consciousness and expansion of the enormous capacity of creation that is alive in each one of you, each one of us, that we keep getting disconnected from because we're out trying to control another or manipulate another, starting with our own children, starting with our own sons and daughters, and thinking that, oh, well, they don't listen to me, so I'm going to send them off to somebody else who's going to dictate to them what they're supposed to do and follow in line. Does that actually make sense? So if you were to take a moment and actually look at that, how does that make sense? And if that's what's resonating with you, you probably would not be here in this moment listening to this, because That's just ludicrous. And you're not leading stronger, longer. Leading stronger, longer means that you are whole, intact, in harmony with your mental capacity to think and to evaluate. And that is in alignment with your ability to have your expression of not only intuition, but your ability to care for more than just your own needs. And that is something that I believe each of us wants and needs when we are connected and in harmony. And then the physical body is in alignment with that. So my focus when a client comes to me and I'm working on situations that they have going on, I'm looking at their body first because it speaks to me the loudest and it doesn't lie. The body doesn't lie. It doesn't matter how many drugs, how much alcohol, how much you've covered it up. The body doesn't lie. And that's what's so amazing. The body doesn't lie and the heart won't either. The mind is really good about adjusting and trying to justify why something is not optimal, why we need to manipulate, why we need to control, why this is the only way to get things done, or I have to bribe them, I have to control. And that's basically control, manipulation, right? So this was a great question that came in. Thank you for sending the question in. I love getting those questions. Any kind of questions you want to send in that I can riff on and basically share what my insight is after being part of both sides, being in the corporate world, being in this very stronghold of we must do things this way and lead things this way, and if we don't, and seeing that, and then being able to be outside of that and watch the results of everyone involved in that organization, and now watching the senior executives and what's happening there and how things have broken down. It's all a bunch of BS and lies. And it started with the manipulation and control of the individuals in there. And now look, we can't just say, okay, well, it was the leader's fault, because ultimately who's following, right? When you're in that leadership and then you've got subordinates, that game that's going on, if you as a leader are creating subordinates who are subservient to you, look at what you've created. If you're not creating collaboration and allowing them to lead themselves and having the trust, not only in yourself, because if you can't trust another, you probably don't trust yourself first. So that's important. All right, so I pulled the book off the shelf beforehand, and this was what came off the shelf. I love this. Gary Zukav does some really, really good work. Dancing Woolly Masters is I would say that's probably a top 100 book recommendation. But this is what I opened it up to. Cooperation. And so this is in the chapter of choice and power, and then under cooperation. Your common goals bring you together and keep you together. And I think that is a great component to talk about with regards to why. Oh, interesting. So I was making the decision to answer this question because somebody asked me specifically about how do I get, if I'm not manipulating someone, how am I going to get them to do what I need them to do? Because I want them to do what I want them to do, but they're not doing it. So I feel like I have to manipulate them. I was like, okay, let's unpack this a little bit. So when you are using, here's one of the questions in this chapter of choice and power is, are my intentions to manipulate or to create harmony? Do I revere my adversary as much as my ally? So if you haven't read this book, then it's a little bit difficult because he talks about terms in terms of adversary and ally. And in terms of like, so let's just take the example of a mother or a father with their son or daughter. And if you are creating this dynamic where you are essentially looking at that son or daughter as an adversary, if you are trying to manipulate them. Now we can go into business owner and your team member and say, if you're trying to manipulate them, you are actually in this the concepts of these words, creating an adversary. So there are moments where in that moment you feel like you have to do that and I just have to manipulate them. But if you were to freeze that for a moment and expand out and look at this is what I work with my clients on and talk about how, okay, there's that moment, freeze that, now expand out, because there's going to be a cause and effect. So that may not be the root cause of why we're here at this moment where you're feeling like you need to manipulate. So I might look and see, was there an earlier moment where that belief came in, or that decision was that, okay, I have to use manipulation to, and manipulation can be coercion, or it can even look like, oh, I'll buy you this treat if you do this. That's manipulation, okay? So you would then back that up and look at what moment was your intention skewed towards control and making this. Sometimes it's making your life easier. Well, I just needed to make my life easier. So we pull that back, we pull the string down it to find the root cause on that belief and why that came about. And then we come back to this moment and look at it again, and it unravels a little bit. And then as we unpack that and see essentially the results of what will occur as a result of this creation, and then also increasing the skill of the leader as I'm coaching them through this, helping you to see that what other possibilities do we have, right? So I'll ask that question. Are there any other possibilities? Well, let's just look at some other possibilities. So yes, you can manipulate, you could coerce, you could do this, right? And then sometimes we'll just go outside of the box and create wild things. I'll do that especially when I'm working with a client and they just are like, it has to be this way, there's only this way. And they're very dogmatic about it. It's very stuck in their left brain and not creating, not coming up with imaginative ways. We'll start playing, we'll start scripting out way outside of the box. And that's something that you can use as a tool, is like, just give yourself permission to go and create something completely absurd. And that kind of breaks some of this shell that often gets us stuck. Now, I will give you the caveat that when I am working with a client who is very stuck in this idea and then considers what I just said esoteric, there's an immediate wall that goes up. So this is where taking some of the steps for yourself to understand and take personal responsibility of what's the outcome. Ultimately, what's the outcome you want as a leader, and in whatever capacity as a leader. If you're a mom or a dad, you're a leader. You're leading by example. If you could take that anywhere, in a business owner, in your own business. If you are leading something, you always have to come back to, how am I leading myself? And the question is, what's my intention? What is my intention? If you're aware now, then the next is, what's your intention? Once you're clear on your intention, then we can put a focus in on that. And sometimes that intention gets a little wonky because maybe you're playing out someone else's script. Maybe you're playing out some other false belief. I think that's sometimes what happens with folks that get to that point where they're feeling manipulation is the only tool that they have in their toolbox, right? So we have to unpack that a little bit. And this is something that is completely doable if you're finding this within you, that you know it just feels icky to manipulate your team members and that you're trying to have to do some kind of coercion or buying them or any scope of that type of manipulation as a leader, then just step back and look at, what is your intention? And then knowing that intention, are there any other possibilities? And maybe I wouldn't say, are there any other possibilities? Yes, there are, because there's infinite possibilities. So we would look at, okay, what other possibility is there? That would be the question that I would ask. And then as you look at what are the other possibilities, allow for that imaginative energy, that creative force that's naturally within you to come out, and then continue to stay in that space of awareness and balance your thoughts and your intuition and your wisdom with your actions, so that when you find something that seems in harmony, that feels in harmony, and you understand what that means, then you actually take the next right action. And then that's when we start seeing some profound change and far better results than coercing or manipulating or trying to control your team members or your sons and daughters. Even I've been seeing this where your mom and dad or your mom who's needing some support and they're aging, and you've got to manipulate them to get out of something or to change an environment. It's like, what's your intention? And have you created an energy of them being an adversary? I think that's kind of an important thing to look at. And so I hope that helps. I hope that these little riffs that I'm doing for the next few weeks help. If you have a specific question, will you please send me your questions, Stephana at stephanajohnson.com. And you can catch more as you subscribe to Lead Stronger Longer, the podcast that inspires you to lead yourself purposefully, personally and professionally. And leading yourself first is the way to go. I'll see you next week.